Hey everybody, it's Mike again with Savage Kingdoms role-playing game and Fire in the Head Productions. Thought I would do another video, try to get this video series done, the Savage Kingdoms of Astagonia, or Savage Kingdoms of the West. I can't remember what I really called it technically, but anyway, same thing. The Western continent is known as Astagonia in the known world of Savage Kingdoms. There you go. So this video will be about the Prydonian Outer Islanders. So the last one was the Prydonian Central Islanders, which I did only like a week ago. So finally I'm trying to get these done a little bit quicker and technically sort of out of the way so I can kind of move on to some other stuff. So after this series, I'm thinking about doing the Savage Kingdoms of the East. In other words, the Savage Kingdoms of Hassan and Amanju. Maybe possibly covering the island continents of Ragnagard and Mezga as well. So there you go, everything that's not Astagonia, which is from the core rulebook. Speaking of the core rulebook, this is where we will be, page 37. That is the artwork that we have chosen for our, where's the title? There it is. There's the title line, Prydonian Outer Islander. That is a playable race choice, or I guess human technically is the race, and your choice, in this case, of being human would to be your culture would be Prydonian Outer Islander. So kind of like the last video, calling yourself a Central Islander when you're from, say, it's a bit meta. It's mostly to split the two basic types of Prydonians into two different sort of stat blocks, as it were. Most people, I think I said in the last video, if you were from a outer island, an outer isle or outer island of the Prydonian Islands, you would probably call yourself a member of that actual island, right? For example, if you were from Athlon, you would call yourself an Athelonian, probably. But you might occasionally maybe say, I'm an outer islander, maybe just as a general sort of thing, but mostly it is a sort of meta game mechanical sort of thing. So, on page 37 of the core rulebook, the hardcover that I just showed you, it might be page 38 on the digital file, but anyway, somewhere in there. I will read the couple of paragraphs of sort of description, fluff, as you will. Prydonian Outer Islander. The human folk of the outer Prydonian Isles, that is the island realms of Athlon, Sardonia, Miurga, Torin, and Veen, and a few smaller ones, are more a warlike people than their central islander counterparts. Traditionally, these islands have not been a part of the Prydonian Republic or have all out opposed it and gone to war against it. This has happened several times to the long history of the Rhodonites and then the Prydonians. Like the Prydonians of the Central Isles, Outer Islanders are loosely based in an ancient Greek analog, though they tend to be slightly taller and more often muscular. So they're, imagine the Outer Islanders in general, particularly the people from Athlon. I kind of modeled them on the Spartans. So they're maybe a little bit wilder. They're, say, more barbaric, but possibly. So they tend to produce more warriors, and so they tend to be maybe slightly taller than Central Islanders. If not taller, certainly a little, maybe more physically fit. Is kind of what that's getting at in a nice sort of way. And often more muscular. In this regard, they might be more akin to real-world Spartans, I think I just said that, or Trojans. The people of these island kingdoms also honor the traditional elder deities of ancient Rhodon, although Agathon, god of competition and war, sometimes also known as Argathon, is often held at least as high as Prydonus, because he is a god of competition and war, based on what I just discussed. More information about the various Prydonian Isles can be found in section 6, A Brief Gazetteer, which I will read from later like I have done in all these other videos. Okay, so the next little section of stats on that page is allowable callings. Right? Allowable callings. So again, a calling is a new thing for 3rd edition Savage Kingdoms. It's almost like choosing a character class, or dare I say, an occupation, or they were formerly known as life paths, but they didn't really have as much mechanical to do as they do now as a life path. It was more of a guideline than an actual rule. In this case, in Savage Kingdoms 3, it is more of a mechanical thing, but it also does help you kind of describe what your general type. Say you weren't there for a session and the game master had to play your particular character, have to do it fairly often. You might, just to kind of remind the GM or some other player might be playing your character, you just look down at the title, it says calling, it's like, gladiator, hunter, sorcerer. It's going to be a lot more to the character, particularly in Savage Kingdoms, when you can build very detailed, very mix and match characters beyond the traditional through line. However, calling does give you a quick sort of adjective, a noun actually, of what that character might be. And then game mechanically, it gives you some other benefits. So, with that in mind, and having said that several times in other videos, the allowable callings of the Outer Island of Prydonians are as follows: Bard, Berserker, Craftsman, Gladiator, Healer, Hunter, Merchant, Noble, Pirate, Priest, Sage, Seer, Soldier, Sorcerer, Thief, and Witch. There you go. There you go. So like 12, 13 of them out of the 25 that will now exist once the Savage East book comes out, because like 4 more were added, I believe, or 5. Attribute array. Prydonian player characters must arrange their attributes at character creation using the following guidelines. So as before, I'll just kind of describe the 3 attributes that they're more known for, that can be higher, shall we say. Those would be agility, vigor, and willpower. So they can start with as high as a +4, and any of those 3, and their absolute maximum is a +6. So there you go. Agility, oh no, wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll repeat it again. Agility, vigor, and willpower. So physique, intellect, and magnetism are sort of on the lower, not really the lower end, they're still kind of average for a human average, but there you go. Special abilities of Outer Islanders. People from what's considered the Outer Islands of the Prydonian people. Sea Affinity. Characters from the Outer Prydonian Isles gain a +1 bonus to acrobatics, athletics, perception, stealth, and survival skill rolls while aboard a ship or within 100 yards of the sea. Like, on a beachhead, possibly. Coastline of some sort. Yeah, so +1 bonus to those 5 skills when aboard a ship or within 500 or so. That's why it's called Sea Affinity. They're kind of used to ships and being near to, well, they're maritime people, so that's where that's coming from. The second special ability would be, or racial ability would be Heat Tolerance. Outer Islanders gain a +1 bonus to endurance rolls made to resist heat or fire effects, because they are a very southern. The Prydonian Islands are right at the equator. Well, most of them are just north of the equator, but some of them, particularly in the outer islands, particularly the southern outer islands, are like almost pretty much right on the equator. Mezca is the land that really has the equator running pretty much directly right through it, just as a side note. All right, skill specialties. Prydonian characters receive, Prydonian as in Outer Islanders in this case, receive 3 free skill specialties at character creation that help reflect Prydonian culture and virtues. So like all the other human cultures, you get to choose 3 free skill specialties at character creation, even if you don't have 3 skill levels in a skill, because every 3 skill levels you do have in a skill, you get to choose a specialty. But you get 3 free ones at character creation. That sort of, again, suggesting culture, your leanings. Even if you weren't necessarily trained in acrobatics, as I look at one of them, perhaps just because you've been around tumbling and leaping or people balancing on ship, just because maybe that's why you have it. Or you don't have any skill levels in sailing, but you still have a specialty in biremes, coastal, or triremes, because you're just around that a lot. That's just part of growing up. Culture plays a big part in people's lives in real life, and any kind of game that semi reflects some amount of believability. Some others that they might choose from, I won't list all of them. Athletics, they could choose the specialties within athletics: climbing, jumping, sprinting, or swimming. Swimming is probably pretty obvious for maritime people. Lore, nobility or religion, herbalism, cooking or healing, crafting, armor, blacksmithing, leather, or weapons. I'm not sure why I didn't list ships in there, but I didn't. Probably should have. Persuasion, diplomacy, or intimidation. So anyway, that's 2/3 of them right there. Let's skip down to the weapons, or they could choose to be specialized in melee weaponry. For example, long swords, short swords, spears, war spears, or tridents. Range weaponry specialties they can choose from are composite longbows, composite shortbow, javelin, longbow, or sling. So there you go. All right, favored talents. So again, favored talents work. Favored talent means you pay 1 point less for it than the base cost. Say it's listed in the rule book as 3. That's sort of the common I'd say most 70% of talents probably have a base cost of 3. You would only pay 2 if it's listed in your culture, and then if it's also listed in your calling, if you choose a calling, because you don't have to, it reduces again by 2, but it cannot reduce to less than 1. In other words, you can't get it for free, unless it's a racial thing, and then it'll actually say so. Favorite talents, battle. They have a lot of battle talents. They are a somewhat war type people, and again, kind of think Spartans or Trojans. Blood talents, Gorgon blood, Rhodonite blood. Mystical talents, the favorite ones would be blood magic, cultist of Gorgathon, penetrating magic, priest of Atories or Sardona, and sacred oath. Favorite social talents, bodyguard, captain, champion, comeliness, gladiator, mariner, mercenary, militia, porter. Subterfuge, feigned attack, privateer, raider, smuggler. Again, kind of makes sense thematically. And other talents, I won't really, there's a fair number of these, I won't read all of those, but agile climber, fleet of foot, heroic strength, navigator, pearl diver, rallying speech, an heirloom of a small ship or mastercrafted weapon, there's a couple others. Favorite weakness, again, I know it sounds like a weird term, but that means to keep it in line with favorite talents, it means if you select a weakness that's favored of your culture, meaning that it happens maybe a little more often in your culture, you get an extra bonus point for. You still can't start with more than 5 bonus points from weaknesses, however, a character creation. It's in the book, but just to remind people. All right, so favorite weaknesses would be for outer Prydonians would be cursed, exiled, Gaius/taboo, oathbound, obsession of battle, competition, or the sea, phobia of enclosed spaces or gorgons. So I didn't really give them a whole lot, but you're free to choose others, of course. Starting languages. Your native language is Prydonian. I know that's a surprise. Which is free, and you begin knowing one more from the following if your intellect is -1 or better. So a little note on the -1 thing. So some people are like, well, that's below average. I'm like, well, yeah, of course, but in real life, let's face it, there's probably a fair amount of people with below average IQs that probably know 2 languages or 3. And also in game terms, a -1 intellect is sort of the average commoner's intellect. Plus 0 is probably average overall, but just say if you look at the stat block, some of the NPCs, not all commoners. That's a giant, massive term, of course. Craftsmen, I think in general, maybe get a little higher. Merchants, but say like a farmer, your typical kind of peasant or serf, they would have a -1 intellect. But they're not entirely stupid. It's just that they usually have very good common sense. Actually, they're just not as educated. But still, they would probably easily know a second language, particularly in a setting that has a lot of different languages. So, your choice of your secondary language, if your intellect is -1 or better, is Laurenthian, Esmondian, Old Rhodonite, Mezcan, and Gorgonic. So there you go. Sample names. Here's some sample male names. Argathes, Athos, Atorius, Hector, Nikos, Theos, Rhodonus. Usually I have, there's 7, okay. I list 7 in all of them. It seemed like that was 6, but that was 7. Female names would be Agatha, Athea, Charis, Dicaea, Nicosia, Sardonea or Sardonia. In this case, it's actually Sardonia, Xandria. Those are female, typically. So outer islanders make use of son of types of naming schemes even more than their central island brethren, although place names such as of Atheas or of Miurga are relatively common as well. Pretty similar to central islanders in the last video. Maybe even slightly more so, because there's not quite as many noble families that would have like a house name, so to speak. Quite as much, and some of the more wilder outer islanders. There you go. So usually, for example, maybe Argathes, son of Atheus, or perhaps more commonly would be perhaps you are Xandria of Miurga, or Xandria of Torin. If you are a non-Gorgonic or non-Minotaur creature living on Torin, God bless you if so. All right, moving on to cultural item. You may choose one of the following items of character creation, or 2 by spending a luck point to complement the rest of your gear. So pretty much like all the other human options and non-human options as well. You get to choose a item. cultural item, or 2 if you want to spend a luck point to start with 2. All right, so those would be a javelin tipped with cold iron, deals extra damage to creatures of Fey origin. 2 cold iron tipped arrows or bolts, extra harm to Fey, recovered on a 6 to 20 on a 1d20. So the general rules for recovering ammunition is if it's average quality, it's recovered on 11 to 20. It's just kind of a quick way to do it. GMs are feel free can, if people are looking for ammunition, you could do, and I used to do it this method as well, you can have them make perception rolls, search specialty or whatever specialty of terrain that is in if you really want to get that detailed to see if they can recover it. But then it's like, then you have to roll or not roll if you don't want to see if it survived, right? So this is just a way of combining it into one thing instead of perception check and then maybe a luck roll to see if the ammunition didn't crack or whatever. So that's just a quick way of just dealing with all of it. Yeah, you find it, but it's if you or it's broken and you can't really do anything with it, So there you go. It's all wrapped up in one roll. So in this case, though, is since it's recovered on a 6 to 20, I didn't actually list that it's technically exceptional quality, but it implies that it is because exceptional quality ammunition is recoverable on a 6 to 20 on a 1d10 or d20 even. All right, third item, ancient coin from the latter years of the Rhodonite era. So really old. That means they were 1,300 years old. Worth 2d20 silver coins if sold. I didn't bother putting what type because it doesn't really matter at that all. It could be some little tiny copper or bronze coin, but the fact that it's that old and maybe it's in really good shape, maybe it wasn't many of them weren't minted, it's still going to make it pretty valuable. Or maybe it's an old gold coin, but it didn't weather very well, or there were a lot of them that were minted, and every collector has them. So how do you want to flavor it? Mysterious black or pink pearl grants +1 to magical arts, death, or water rolls for ritual spells only. So only when you're using a ritual spell, casting a ritual spell as a ritual. The next item, exceptional coral tipped javelin, +1 to maximum damage. So it's exceptional quality and it's tipped with a really sharp coral, so it's a +1 damage. Eel or shark skin scroll case or belt pouch, virtually waterproof because it's made of eel or shark skin. That would have been the way you waterproof things from a culture that's very maritime. That would be somewhat common to get a hold of eel or shark skin. There are other ways of waterproofing as well in a medieval sort of setting, even with magic, and that's like wax and various other tanning procedures. But that's a good way to do it right there. It says virtually waterproof because if you were to submerge, say, a pouch or satchel made of like underwater for like several minutes, it's probably the stuff inside still probably going to get somewhat wet, if not very wet. Tooth or claw from a gorgonic beast, +1 to renown while in the Prydonian Isles is a typo. It says in while. It should say while in Prydonian, so the words get transposed. So tooth or claw from a gorgonic beast. So whenever you're going to put at Prydonian Islands, you're going to have +1 to your renown because people recognize what it is most likely, or at least would look darn cool. Moving on, gold-plated ring or armband won in athletic competition. Gold-plated ring or armband won in athletic competition. So traditionally in Prydonian culture and even Laurenthian, especially early Laurenthian, I don't think it's really, it might be somewhere in the book actually in the Gazetteer section. It was very traditional to participate in Agathonian competitions, which basically are like Olympic stuff. It's just my word for it for the setting. And why am I whispering? So people, warrior athletes would compete, and they would try to win these gold rings, right? So to put they were either large for your arm, or maybe they're finger rings. In any case, they're gold rings. Some people wear them as a necklace to show off as a trophy, and that's why it says perhaps it's something you won, this gold-plated ring, or maybe it's an armband. Like I said, maybe it's big enough to put on your arm. And it's worth 2d20 silver pieces. So obviously it's not solid gold if it's that low. Maybe it's solid gold if it's a finger ring, but an arm ring, that suggests to me that it would be gold-plated. I don't actually literally say it, but I think common sense dictates that it would be gold-plated in that case. 1/4 ownership of a bireme, merchant galley, or warship, your choice. 1/4 ownership, meaning that 3/4 of it is owned by another merchant was able to, maybe there's 4 owners and each of you own it equally. So that's for you and the game master to kind of come up with it. And I like items like that because they connect your character to the setting a little bit more, and they also connect you more to the game master, where you and the game master can work together and maybe come up with this cool sort of backstory that may or may not come into play. Even if it doesn't come into play, it may drive your character. And I'm now almost getting to actor sort of territory, because that's the other thing I do is so whenever there's something in your background as a character or as an actor or as a player at a role-playing game table, even if that thing never directly comes up, because I think some people always go, well, I had this thing and it never came up. It's like, well, it might have actually came up. It might have driven the way you played your character, especially in several different scenes or particularly moments. That probably crept into your head, and then it kind of changed your performance. It changed maybe what your character did. So yeah, it's a little overthinking. Little background things like never, even if they don't directly come into play, they might still indirectly come into play more often than you think. All right, general code of honor for outer Prydonian Islanders. Give a sacrifice to the sea, an animal or object worth at least 5 silver pieces before every voyage. Central Islanders will do that too. Particularly, it generally represents you giving a gift to Prydonus, the god of the sea, for a safe crossing, so that he doesn't take you. Is kind of an old. Others might believe that maybe it's connected to Prydon. Maybe it's more of the Leviathan, which is considered this massive whale-type creature, said to be there only one of them. That's sort of the son of Prydonus, as some people call it. So maybe it's a sacrifice to him. Maybe it's to both. Maybe it's some darker spirits, and maybe it's the sirens of the sea that you're giving it to, which are somewhat demonic anyway, and Gorgonic. Honor the captain/pilot of his vessel unless he has shown to be untrustworthy. The reason I put captain/pilot is they're not necessarily one and the same. So pilot, I like the word pilot because it's a somewhat older age of antiquity and even Dark Ages term. We use the term captain a lot for the pilot of a ship. The thing is, though, that doesn't always work because the captain of the ship isn't necessarily always the pilot. Often, but not always. Sometimes, and he's not always the owner necessarily either. The owner might have hired this guy that knows the sea really well. Maybe the captain's better at navigating, and in that case, he would kind of be the pilot. But maybe he's not. Maybe he's not at the udder all the time. Maybe he's not always setting the course. So honor the captain/pilot of his vessel unless he has shown to be untrustworthy. So in other words, don't mutiny. Unless the guy's obviously or girl or whatever is obviously. All right, protect all children and women needing such, for they are the nature's future. My God, if we could only learn this in real life in our country. Protect all children and women needing such, for they are the nation's future. Very true. Honor and respect the ancient gods of Rhodon, the forebears of the Prydonian people. So that means the current gods, because pretty much they're all in fashion to be worshipped. Never suffer a pirate to live or go free, for they are the bane of the civilized seas. So the Central Islanders also had that in their code as well. Never suffer a pirate to live, or at least go free, for they are the bane of the civilized seas. Yeah, they ruin the whole fabric of society. So think about if you grew up in a maritime society, and again, this is based on ancient Greece, and there are people messing it up all the time. It would be like in the current age, where a lot of us make our living or do a lot of social stuff or both on the internet, and if we're getting cyber attacked all the time, totally not cool. Suddenly we don't. Those are pirates as well, so not cool at all. Avenge all serious insults by single combat or acceptance of a public apology. Avenge all serious insults by single combat or acceptance of a public apology. So these are kind of a single combat type people, almost like the Northerners. So it's like you serious insult, especially in front of people. Yeah, it's going down probably. I don't know why suddenly I'm like deeply Southern. Um, or acceptance of a public apology. So that's very similar. So if public apology meaning that the person apologizes and lots of people listening, that's cool because now you're that person. If it's a real apology or bent the knee in some way or even gave you an apology gift, that's surely cool. But depends on the character. So once again, like I've said in other videos, these code of honors they're loose on purpose because all the different city-states, all the different islands, even within the one culture, nobody's really going to, there's not literally a specific, here in American life and real life, we have, the Constitution, right? And those who are, say, Christianity, we have the Ten Commandments, which really translate to a lot of other religions too. We might follow that as our general code, right? But even those can be quite loosey-goosey, as it were. So that's what that is for. It's supposed to just kind of give you a role-playing guide to go on, because this game system doesn't have alignment, and I did that on purpose because I think alignment. I did a whole video on this. It's kind of limiting. I think it's good for game masters, dungeon masters in this case, to just kind of very quickly go, okay, this guy's lawful evil. I kind of know a block thing in my head what that means. Or this guy's chaotic good, or true neutral, whatever. But when it comes down to player characters that you're going to put a little more thought and creativity to, alignment's very, very restrictive. Very, very general, very basic. So I think Code of Honors kind of work a little bit better. So that's why I did it that way. Okay, that's all from that chapter. We're at 25 minutes. So I'm going to move on to the Gazetteer section and share a little bit with you guys from what's there. So kind of like the last, I don't know, I'm like belching on this head. Sorry. I never edit these things, so I apologize. So like the last video, I just had to turn to one of these central islands. I think it was Neopos. So this time, I turned right to Miurga. I was actually going to do Athlon, but Miurga is also cool. In some ways cooler. I'll just do Athlon as this right here at the beginning. And it's honestly probably my main prototype for the cultures. Miurga is probably a close second, though. All right, so here's a map of Athelon. So Athelon is one of the outer islands of the Prydonian Islands and within the Sea of Prydonus. You can probably tell by the map there's not really so that other land mass, that other big island north of it is one of the central islands. Or no, actually that's Sardonia, so it's actually considered an outer island too. Going even more to the point I'm about to make. So as you can see, if the island up there is still considered kind of an outer island or outer island, then Athlon is even further away from the central islands of where the Prydonian Republic kind of was. So in that case, it makes Athlon very much an outer islander. So this outer island. So that's why I'm going to use this one to read from slightly. All right, so the native tongue of Athlon is Prydonian, although the Athlonians have developed their own dialect over the years due to separation and distance from the central islands, to my point. The priestly and or educated might speak the occasional foreign language, such as Laurenthian, Ismandian, or even Gorgonic, but this is fairly rare. The common Athlonian seldom reads or writes, and in fact, there is an ancient stigma among the more superstitious that writing is the work of sorcery and magic craft, belongs only to priests, sorcerers, and demigods. So there you go. I actually kind of forgot that little point, so I'm glad I read that. Religion. The ancient gods of Rhodon, the elder deities, are still widely embraced in far-flung Athlon, with Agathon, god of competition, blood, and victory, being the patron deity of the island kingdom itself. Sardona is also highly revered, especially among women, as is Toris, Prydonus, and even a small cult of Marastia still remains here, a battle and storm goddess from old times. So Marastia would be considered a ninth god of Rhodon, but then there's a lot of lore that says it, most lore, I would say. And I won't tell you what I think is true. I'd let rather every game master decide who runs this world and setting. That she may not necessarily been a Rhodonite deity, one of the original 7 or 8 if you count Gorgathon. That she might have been some other deity from some other lost race, or perhaps even non-human race. Marastia, and she's associated with storms and Amazons, like warrior women and stuff like that. So yeah, a battle and storm goddess from old times. Let's see, what else? Let's go over major cities and settlements. Partholonium is the traditional capital city of Athlon, although it has alternately been such settlements as Nataros and Trimoria in the past. If not for long, Atorius is perhaps the most eastern of the important port settlements. The ancient, once capital of Argathonium, is said to still lie in ruins along the rocky western shoals. There you go. Let's see. Flora and fauna, dolphins, swordfish, and orca whales are seen in the waters around Athlon, while small deer, wild pigs, and wild cats can occasionally be found inland. Flowering plants are fairly common, as are types of ivy and vine. Cedar is not uncommon, but otherwise most trees tend to be palms and fruit bearers. Gorgonic beasts can occasionally be found haunting the countryside, usually minotaurs, medusae, and chimerae. or chimeras, if you want to anglicize the plural, though in rare moments a demonic thing might be seen, or a beckoning siren heard. Food and drink: boar, fish, and even octopus and shark meat are the primary staples of Athelonian eat meats, and bread of various types, grapes, limes, figs, and dates add an exotic flair to the tables of most nobles and well-to-do commoners. Various forms of wine and light ale, particularly those made of grape or wheat, are preferred drinks, and rumour has it that a rare elixir made from the juice of golden apples is often sought after by those with enough coin. There you go. Notable characters. King Theos the Swift is the current ruler of Partholonium, and therefore all of Athlon. So there's a bit of a city-state vibe going on, but as you can see, each island is really kind of its own realm. It's more or less each island realm, if you were island kingdom, is more or less unified. Occasionally, some of those larger cities of an island, especially if they're far apart from each other, one lord of that city or governor of that city might rise and sort of become a king of his own independent realm. That's happened a few times throughout Prydonian and Rhodonite history, but in general, it remains pretty united. So King Theos the Swift is therefore king of all Athlon, as well recognized as such. Queen Rhodonea rules by his side a she-warrior of sorts, and there is also the Arch-Templar Argathes and the undefeated gladiator Epicus, who once fought in the great metropolis of Prydon itself. There we go. Heraldry and Symbology. So King Theos' banner, and therefore the standard of all Athlon, is that of a golden lightning bolt upon a black field. So again, Dark Age. So this is kind of an early form of heraldry. To kind of put it in real history terms. The sigil for Epicus the Victorious is a black-winged sandal on a field of scarlet red, while the holy iconography of the patron god Argathon is often seen here as well, a golden eagle clutching a gold circlet, like we talked about a few moments ago, the victory circlet, on a crimson field. Allies. Athlon has many rivals. Athlon has been an independent foil of the Prydonian Republic for most of its existence, and has even been in short-term oceanic war with the Amazon tribes of Altavaros to the north, and even with the faraway Asmondians. So another note I sort of thing I forgot about. They like to import wood, wine, foodstuffs, herbs, spices, fine cloth, gold, silver, precious gems, wool, leather goods, alchemical goods. They tend to export horses, cattle, iron, tin, bronze, copper, pearl, semi-precious gems, clayware, tileware, sea goods. There you go. Coinage and Currency. The city of Partholonium mints and stamps official coins for the Athelonian economy, as overseen by King Theos. Still, trade and barter is very alive and well, particularly in the smaller country villages. The common Athelonian bronze coin is called a Natora, a silver piece a Myro, and the rare gold coin a Parthon. So there you go. That's the thing I like to do a fair amount in GMing that I suggest to other GMs is one little nice color detail is to name your coins instead of always saying gold coin, gold pieces, silver pieces, whatever. That's fine if you're just trying to do some quick paperwork, but while you're in descriptive mode, or particularly in dialogue mode, throw in the name of the coin every so often. So nice little trick there. Climate and weather, blah, blah, blah. Let's see, we're at 33 minutes. So only in the winter is there the faintest hint of a chill in the wind, and then usually during the night, because Athlon again is pretty far south and not far north of the equator. Storms batter the southern shores fairly often, though the west and north is primarily immune to such, save for small squalls. Volcanic activity is also common, thought to be the doings of Agathon and his endless battles with Gorgons and diamonds in the underworld. There you go, sorry. In general, the island of Athlon is very warm almost all year round, particularly in the summer months when it is outright hot. So, right. Common customs. I'll just go grab a few of these really quick. Most Athelonians dare not cast out to sea unless making a proper sacrifice or oath prayer to Agathon, Prydonus, or Marastia for safety and success. It is often considered a privilege to visit the sacred ruins of Argathonium, though it can be a terrible curse to those who come unprepared for physical and spiritual trials. Note, adventurers. In Nataros, if an owl is slain by anyone other than a priest, it is punishable by drowning. Yep. sacred animal there, because that is the patron deity Napalos, is the patron deity of Nataros, that city. In Trimoria, it is forbidden that a woman, other than a known priestess of Omega, go about the city with her face veiled. So you can't have your face veiled unless you're a priestess of Omega. In the arena or stadium, victorious athletes are often given golden rings as prizes and trophies. That's like the third time that's come up in this session. All right, last thing. We'll close with this. Common sayings, because these are always kind of fun, even though they contextually sometimes don't make any sense. To the victor the ring, to the conquered nothing. May your eagle fly high and with the wind. To the black waters of Rhodon with you. Leviathan take you. Sea guide my ship, Atori's my time, and Agathon my spear. So yeah, there you go. So the Rhodon thing, I think I said in the last video, that's basically saying to heck with you. To hell, to literally, yeah. It's either the darkest part of the ocean or it's a faraway island that's possibly in the netherworld or borderline to it. So yeah, I think that'll do it at 35 minutes, a little over. Thanks for paying attention. I think there's only one or two of these videos left, and that was the Outer Island, the Prydonian people of the Outer Islands. Thanks for paying attention. Like, subscribe, and all that stuff, and check out Savage Kingdoms and tell people about it. Thanks, guys. Bye.